We're back at it again for part 3 of the Scourge Twin series. Thank you again and shout out to Karma on YouTube and Etheria. How will things go with our brothers now being divided in more ways than one? Find out now with this part. Returning back to our story, after an embarrassing loss for our twins at Little Planet, has now spiraled to our brothers being far away from each other indefinitely for the first time in a long time. The Green Prince himself, Scourge, finding himself battered and bruised on the plains of Emerald Hill Zone, after recovering from his embarrassing loss back then and realizing that he really was alone again with no brother or goody two-shoes girl in sight, he lies to himself saying, "I don't need those two, no more wusses around King Scourge." But that stupid doctor would be getting paid back deviously though, vowing to show how much his way of doing things was better than his twin. And just like that, the Green Demon's ego had already taken over again. No more heroes, no more doctors, just him and the dang emeralds. So it doesn't take long till Scourge destroys every badnik within the vicinity as revenge from earlier. And especially knowing that his metal self had proven to be his better, the kingdom building starts now. So it doesn't take long where, just like in Spring Yard Zone in part 1, Emerald Hill becomes another one of the Hedgehog's territories, making every critter fall in line immediately to make sure that they know they're under his protection. All except these two distracted foxes for some reason that seem to be bullying another with a 2-for-1 genetic defect. Not caring initially and telling the two to fall back in line, but surprised when the fox perks up at seeing Scourge, always wanting to meet the prince and the hero who defeated Robotnik alongside his brother. Scourge initially gets ticked off at the word hero, but definitely seeing that the fox had heard more of his brother's exploits than his own, when the two fox bullies point out and laugh that there's no way a guy like this is a prince. Scourge shows that he's the top dog around here, beating up the two to the ground, then telling the fox that first things first to being the best, you don't let anyone test your authority, encouraging the fox that if he wanted him to take him seriously, he needed to give back the same energy the bullies gave to him. The Freddy Fox is initially nervous, not one to be violent, still scared, but Scourge just grins with a spiky tooth smile that if there's one thing he learned, is that if you don't treat trash like trash, the fox will always be stuck as a loser, almost reminiscing on his own origin story a little bit. Tails entrusts his instincts in his role as he pretty badly attempts to mimic the Hedgehog's violent fighting style, as within a couple moments of a high diff fight, Tails barely comes out on top, panting and exhausted. Scourge wraps his arm around his shoulder, suddenly surprised that the kid actually went all in for it. Tails still not feeling the best about what he did, but he did feel a bit better about standing up to his bullies for the first time, and with his role model's approval too. The Green Prince instantly grinning with a devious idea, his whole gang formation idea suddenly coming back to him, saying if the Fox Boy kept this up he might actually make the team. Still think of an actual name for the group though. Saying rule number 1 though, you follow my orders and my plans, because I've got big plans for this world. And by the way, you should stick with the name Miles. It's way better than whatever they were calling you. So it doesn't take long till Scourge and Miles blaze past Emerald Hill Chemical Plant, the prince finally beginning to collect a few of the Chaos Emeralds himself with the nifty radar that the fox built. Strangely only showing 6 emeralds on the island though. Scourge would ignore this fox companion's plans as he planned to do things in his style, influencing the fox that with all that small talk he was acting, he was actively making him a loser. If he was gonna be all brains and all, he needed to learn to do it in a more cooler and more stylistic way. Later on, without Eggman here, there's another rascal on the island that's competitively set up his own presence on the island. Fang the Sniper, the Weasel Bandit himself, is currently on a little bit of a solo trip right now on South Island, looking for the fabled emeralds for his own monetary gain. So it doesn't take long till both bad guys have an encounter, the Purple Weasel being very surprised that his tactical pop gun was actually only going 1 out of 10 against this fast menace, being forced to use many of his motorcycle machines, but they end up being bashed through violently. Still though, Fang has been through the mud himself, being slimy in his own tactics a few times, tricking up Scourge throughout these fights, which just boils the blood of the speedster even more as he gets away with the emerald from Aquatic Ruin Zone. Vowing it's going to take more than that to get rid of a master thief before getting away, as the rivalry between Purple and Green grows. Transitioning to the Blue Blur's POV, we find the damaged twin in Green Grove Zone, being accompanied by the concerned Amy as she does everything she can to get the prince back on his feet. The damage from taking the Metal Brother of Wrath almost head on was clearly on Sonic. The young Psychic clearly being filled with worry, especially after seeing Sonic attempt to make sure that she was okay instead, not wanting to fail again, and quickly still attempting his own free-spirited nature even in his damaged state. Almost apologizing in his own sneaky way that his green twin was his problem to deal with. He just needs to knock back some sense into him like he always does. Amy, with the prone Sonic, steels herself of her own hard-headed resolve to keep what she sees as the true definition of royalty okay. So with all the effort the damsel can, the girl helps carry Sonic all throughout the definitely not copied and pasted Green Hill Zone, even as the blue blur pretends that his injuries aren't even a big deal. It's not long on their tread though that the two notice a huge amount of flicky birds being rounded up for badnik creation with what seems to be a rotund robot version of the Professor, an Egg Robo. Seems like the doctor had time to create a little worker to do some work below on the surface, especially with this big capsule looking a little bit bigger than normal. The robot mimicking its creator's attitude, as it looked almost amused the Hedgehog's reports were still talked about. Especially with the time plan that was happening in the background, so he could finally do his own thing, immediately hopping in his own machine to take the Hedgehog duo down for a confidence boost. Amy runs as fast as she can with Sonic in tow, but still only barely dodging the lasers. But when the statement that Scourge said to her comes back to her with the whole useless girl statement, she almost gets some sort of a little of a rage boost, whipping out the Pico hammer to hit the laser beam right back, surprising the Egg Robo's cartoonish faction, as even he gets a bit of a fear in his own existence. Can robots truly feel fear? Was truly coming to his mind, this being enough to spook the bot to retreat to the next zone. The blue blur freeing all the animals. Suddenly though, the bigger capsule erupts someone familiar as a yellow streak bursts open, suddenly gliding through air, but with a sneeze cartoonishly crashes down onto both hedgehogs. Ray, the flying squirrel, thanks his saviors in his naive country accent after being trapped by the robot, greeting the apparent prince with a violent spit handshake, which Sonic actually replicates back. Ray saying that his home zone has been getting terrorized thanks to this bot, and after naively greeting the stranger and intruder just like his mama taught him, it would be mighty rude for him if he didn't help fix his own mistakes. After we get a little quick overview of what the hedgehogs have been going through, the statement of two speedy Terminators being out there keeps the squirrel aghast for a while. The farm boy barely keeping up with the almost movie-like threat that he was hearing the two hedgehogs describe to him, and him having a apparent evil twin. Regardless, the blue hedgehog and squirrel start to kick it off since, Ray being a little bit of a wild boy himself quickly relates to all of Sonic's adventure craving. The comedian causing Sonic a couple hurtful laughs since they're already like two peas in a pod. Amy though felt like the squirrel was too hyper for her liking, but even she chuckled a bit of how easily fooled Ray was throughout their exploring of Rusty Ruin and Spring Stadium Zone. Like for example, in said stadium, Ray almost putting the trio in danger when he attempts to speak Flicky to beckon at them to come towards their direction for safety, not realizing that due to his accent, his translation was coming out more as gibberish, especially when one of the words he speaks almost sounds like an accidental slur in their language. Amy and Ray almost have to book it out to the next zone when they're getting chased by crowds of flickies when it seems that Ray's last mistranslation offended the father of a group of birds, or when Amy was actively trying to push herself a little bit into a bit more action to rebuke Scourge's words from earlier, but Ray, lacking any social cues of city girls, thinks the hedgehog is suffering some cold shivers, throwing healthy fruits at her that'll aid her in her flu, which leads to a missed hammer strike from a badnik, Sonic chuckling from the events taking place, while Ray scratched his head like a cartoon character, not knowing that she wasn't gonna catch that. Amy hitting both boys on the head, beginning to act like the mom of the trio, but as long as Sonic was safe, that's all that matters. Similarly like his own twin, Sonic too begins to think about his own promise of having a group of buddies that he could adventure with, protect, and help teach his green brother some hard humility. So we now have the two adventures of the brothers running simultaneously as one fetched for power while influencing another, while the other is unable to help but has allies to help pick him up on the way. Focusing back on Fang, he was starting to get a bit annoyed that this spoiled brat of a speedster definitely didn't have as much of a hard life as him but was actually keeping up to his trail. and honestly going band for band with him, impressing the guy a little bit, so he decides to pull off one of his last tricks that his latest customer just helped commissioned him to do. Soon Scourge and the ever-loyal Fox find themselves in Metropolis zone, when behind them a humongous Fang robot makes his presence known, yelling from the speaker that these two have made as interesting rivals, but it was time to blow this popsicle stand, telling the Kid Fox to move as a gigantic missile-sized bullets careened over the area. The green crash out didn't have any complaints though, letting loose as he tries to imitate the weird electric thing that he did on Little Planet, his fur getting some electric attributes as he runs around dodging the missiles, telling Miles to sit back and watch, destroying the surrounding city in tremendous ways, with the two bad guys with their streaks experience could care less. Miles though was worried about the unnecessary damage going on, but listening to Scourge's advice of putting his brains to a more cooler stylistic use. When Scourge and Fang get to the point of running the ones inside the machine itself, both ops eager to get their hands dirty, their carelessness ends up making the emeralds in both boys' positions become lost, both angrily blaming each other. Fang leaves the robot, knowing the self-destruction sequence will handle the brat. The Weasel is surprised when an instant charge of green thunderball energy almost rages out. Miles below, finally having thought of a plan in a swag-like way, like he said, tackles Scourge with a quick flight, angering the prince a little bit. Why did this kid intervene? But Miles confidently tells him to release the energy now. Without thinking, Scourge says screw it, the electric speed energy inside him hitting the arm of a robot that actually protects the two from the self-destruction, all three being safe on the ground and shocked at the action. And before Scourge can possibly lash out for the interference, Miles, with a moment of cunning IQ, just shows off the 6 remaining emeralds all safe and sound in his possession, truly believing he did a heroic act. Fang looked terrified for the first time as the cracking of Scourge's knuckles echoed throughout the broken down city. Meanwhile, back on Team Sonic, the three faced off against the Egg Robo in one final battle in a weird dimensional arena. The Blue Twin 2 learns the lesson on reliability, as even with Amy and Ray being pushed against their limits against the machine with the crushing hands and lasers, just like when the Hedgehog felt like he was about to jump in, with a click glide to drop dash hammer swing, Amy lands a BAM, the machine exploding from the female Hedgehog forcing herself to grow more as a fighter. Ray cheering with happiness, as he was pretty sure that none of his farm friends would believe any of the wacky adventures that he went on today. The two walking up to the Hedgehog, with Amy cheerfully saying that she would not be giving up on chasing up behind his back. Ray too, thinking he wouldn't mind sticking along with the scary girl and prince. His mama could deal with him taking a little vacation to explore with his new pals. Sonic smiling at the situation, the flicky island was now free from the Egg Empire. Suddenly though, the Egg Robot instantly pops out of the machine, spasming with code that said something eerily related to a Chaos Emerald. Ray kicks the ball one more time to fix it back to normal. The coded message from Robotnik to the Egg Robo saying that there is one more Chaos Emerald located on an island starting an annual combat tournament and for him to head there pronto. Amy knows that this is where they could heal Sonic's injuries definitively, and definitely where Scourge will be going too. As at the same time, Fang begins to beg, mentioning similar news of the 7th Chaos Emerald being at a fighters tournament. His comrades were over there already. If he wanted a better fighting chance of winning, and with his connections, they should extend a truce together, because at the end of the day, birds of the feather flock together. Scourge's ego being scratched, as he did have to admit, him and the Weasel did think alike. Plus, he couldn't scare Miles off yet if he beat the guy to a pulp now. He was now just starting to show some real promise as a real servant, lending out a hand to Fang as he grins widely that that's fine, this would be interesting. One more step towards his kinghood. The new Scourge trio forming up together, making one thing clear, that he was in charge. And if his bastard of a brother was still up and kicking, then he had all dibs on taking him down first. Especially knowing that if he got the emeralds, he would have a lot of land to cover, especially with Spring Yard Zone back in part 1. Us being left with the scene of our two fixed teams of various characters and backgrounds all heading towards the same location. Unbeknownst to all though, this particular tournament's higher-ups have been replaced by one particular villain. The Egg Robo not being destroyed exactly, communicating to his creator that all plans have been set. An arena where all sorts of fighters, and especially the princes, will be fighting all out, giving ample data for the mysterious battle cards to appear for the Discover Gizoid project. and something else in his back pocket. For the bot to stand down for his location. The Metal Brothers will be flying to his coordinates soon. As this is where I'll be leaving things for right now, as next time will be the events of Sonic the Fighters taking place. Hey, another banger in the kitchen cooked. I appreciate you guys still for the support. We are already about to be in part 4 soon enough, though. I doubt I've already scripted it yet. Make sure you guys support the other videos I've been doing too, so I can, get my money up. And what are some of your predictions of what do you think is going to happen this series? And then once again, I will be releasing a couple polls for you guys to influence the story. But that's all for me. Have a blessed rest of your day.